Hi, this is Shad Ring, and you're watching
Bronco Planet.
Hello there, Bronco Planet fans. Shad Ring here with you. We've got our special guest, Chris, our NFL analyst, is back in the house. Dan's on medical leave. I don't know where he's at, but anyway, we're rolling nonetheless. And hey, I got to tell you, what a crazy game, mayhem here in the Mile High City. What do you think, Chris?
Listen, you know where I come down on the whole Tebow thing. You know I'm not pro Tebow, but at the end of the day, Shad, the W is what matters. And this is very weird, and I don't want my wife to see this, but there's a chance that I may have been wrong. And I hate to be the guy that says that, but let's take a step back, tomorrow and through the week and realize who we were playing. And then realize that it took overtime to get there. So let's not retire the number quite yet. And Chad Ochocinco can fit him for his Hall of Fame jacket. Not quite yet, but certainly at the end of the day, Shad, the W is what matters.
Well, I got to tell you what, I had the opportunity. The Alumni Association wanted to partner with Bronco Planet. They're having a great event up there at the Hot Brow, Colorado. We went out there, and I got to tell you, it was mayhem. 3 quarters and a half of the worst football you've ever seen, followed by a half a quarter of pure adrenaline. Sure. I tell you, I came home, I had to change my shorts because it was that kind of game, and it was nuts. So, actually, just for a second, just to give you a little feel for what that was like, all I had with me is a little point and shoot camera, but I captured the moment here for you, and then listen to these fans going nuts. The Bronco Alumni, it was crazy. Well, that pretty much sums it up. I'm telling you, I had the hairs on my arm standing straight up, everybody going nuts. It was just about what everybody expected. Everybody got their little piece of this game. Those Miami fans,
sure,
doing a homecoming.
Sure.
I think
sure.
Tebow did get the homecoming king at halftime. Not sure who the queen is yet, but they got that excitement. All the Orton lovers are the anti-Tebow. They had 3 quarters to say, "I told you so," in your face. So it's all over the board. And then, of course, Tebow comes back at the end. You saw
Sure.
the magic. So it's just, I'm confused.
If by magic you mean Miami going into a prevent defense, then yes, that's exactly what we saw. But Shad, you're exactly right. Whichever the side of the fence you come down on Tebow, you take something out of this game that you can walk away saying you were right. I take 3.5 quarters away from this game saying that guy's not an NFL quarterback. The last 7 minutes, obviously, hard to argue against.
Yep, I tell you what, he does make a believer out of you, whether you like Tim Tebow or not. and especially those Bronco fans. Now, don't get carried away here. You talk about not getting carried away. This is not John Elway. Tim Tebow is not John Elway as far as how he reads.
Well, Tebow obviously is better.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, we've heard that from
all
day
over the
one.
blogs, it's everybody.
Tebow's obviously better. Elway was kind of a hack. Yeah, you know.
But what he does have is he does have that leadership ability. He's got that. He's got those intangibles, which we've heard time and time again. And sure enough, that's exactly what won that game. I mean, it was grit. I thought Mike McCoy continues to be the worst offensive coordinator in the league. I cannot believe how predictable he is. I was scratching my head, screaming, shouting, fans murmuring left and right. And yet Tebow, despite poor play calling, finds a way to create some magic.
Well, you take those last 2 drives and you go straight up and down the field, and you get the ball finally in overtime, and you run the ball twice and take a sack. I mean, it's a lot of the comeback is credited to Miami losing the game as much as it was Tebow winning the game. But you throw the ball all over the field, and you got Fells making catches, and Willis making a catch, and Thomas making catches, showing up finally, and you get into overtime, and you take that page of the playbook, and you know, let's run the ball, and it just. I don't get it.
Well, it's a confusing type of season. I mean, when you're 2-4, it's darn confusing, and there's a lot of frustration. You see that on the blogs, people getting fired up, fighting back and forth. Bronco, we're family, all right? It's okay. You can have different sides of the fence there. But anyway, who was kind of absent throughout the game was our linebackers. When you see your defensive back, Will Hyde, getting the most tackles out of everybody, that's not always good. Certainly, though, I do have to give props because I've been on him a little bit. DJ Williams comes up with a big play on that sack.
When you needed to play, no doubt. And the defense, the linebackers obviously were missing a little bit during the day. Von Miller obviously continues to be really impressive. I don't want to rain on the parade here, but I'm pretty sure Calvin Johnson still plays for the Lions.
He does.
And I have a feeling that maybe a week from now, you and I may be having a little bit different conversation when Megatron's in, and not just because I drafted him in the first round of our fantasy league and I'm crushing everyone, but let's pull the reins in a little bit until we play a team that's won a game this year.
And when he says crushing, when he's beating his opponent's games like 126-70 for you fantasy lovers out there, yes, the beatdown is coming from Chris. Yes, a whole different ball game. You're going to see a Detroit team that's sucked forever and ever. They've been able to put together some great drafts. That's the good news about being in the bottom tier where Broncos are heading. It's going to be a whole different ball game.
Look at where Detroit is now versus where the coach that will remain nameless, got it handed to him by the Cowboys today, who was running the Broncos. Look at the difference in those past 3 years. You look at Ndamukong Suh and Stafford and Calvin Johnson and Javid Best and Brandon Pettigrew, a great trade bringing in Scheffler. Look at all those that core that Detroit has built, and then you look at what Denver's done in the last 3 years, and it's unfair to Bronco fans what he's done.
It is unfair, and I'm glad you didn't mention his name because that's the potty word around here, and we just don't use potty words. So I guess to sum up the game, I think McGahee, a little concerning to Bronco fans, had a decent game there for a while, got hurt. We hear broken hand. We'll get more details as that comes. Tebow, leading rusher, 65, per yards per carry, sure. 8.1. Tebow running all over the place, and simply got his butt kicked with 7 sacks.
And we've seen this, how many times have we seen this? The lone exception to this rule is Michael Vick. But you saw it with Vince Young, where in college, I'm simply the best athlete on the field. You get to the NFL, and suddenly all the other 21 guys on the field, they were the best athlete on their college team. And Tebow, and again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that years from now we're counting his rings and he's been knighted or sainted or whatever it needs to be. But you can't get sacked 7 times. You can't have 8 rushing attempts. You can't hold on to the ball that long at this level. When it was the SEC, yeah, you can do those things, but you're not playing Vanderbilt and you're not playing Ole Miss. And when Ndamukong Suh's on one end and Kyle Vanden Bosch is coming on the other edge next week,
it's a little different. Although people would argue that Miami's actually worse than those 2 teams that you just mentioned. So it's hard to say, but because I want to be in your face, and Tebow did win that one, let's just pause for a minute, Chris, and just reflect in the victory of Tebow. Give me a second. That felt good. A little rub it in your nose there, and
we'll see.
you know, I'm not overly crazy about Tebow either. You know, I think Tebow's more exciting than Orton. You saw that today. You know,
and we saw this, Shad, 2 weeks ago when he came in relief. Is the one difference and the one thing that is undeniable is that the other 10 guys on the field play harder for him than they were playing for Orton. And he may not have, he may not have all the skill that Elway or Andrew Luck, please. Those guys may have
lost some momentum on that today.
I know, and then the Chiefs go and win, and it's just like, what is going on? But the one thing that is undeniable is the leadership that he brings, and the fact that those guys on the field play harder when he's on the field. And in that case, if you're John Fox, swapping the quarterbacks was an easy move.
And one of the best scenes, I think, of the whole moment after Tebow takes a little kneel, as you would expect him to, there was Champ Bailey right there saying, hey, that's what we like. I mean, you know, when you get the quotes like you get out of Champ Bailey throughout the week about Tim Tebow, you know, that's a leader. So, all right, well, let's finish up quickly. Doghouse and superheroes and goats, if you will.
Well, you and I were talking before we got going here that maybe it's the same guy in Prater. You know, misses two. You know, it's funny when you're talking in 40, 43, 45, somewhere in that range as a gimme. But that's what it's become for Prater. We expect those to be gimmies. And what's really funny, Shad, is if he hits those in regulation and we don't need the dynamic comeback, then we're like, oh yeah, the Broncos won. You know, it wasn't the furious rally at the end, but when it came down to it, and I had Dave Logan on the radio while I'm watching the end of the game, and you know, Logan summed it up best, is that I'll always put my money on Prater. You know, he missed him during the regulation, but when he had that shot, you know, maybe Janikowski's the one guy you take in this league other than Prater.
Yeah, I was about to get a little fired up about Matt go TP his house or come up with something really creative like that. But I got to tell you, you know, he missed some field goals or a field goal in the Raider game that was costly. You know, missed a couple gimmies, and you know, he comes back in the end a little nervous. He had his helmet off. He kept wiping his brow. I was like, what happened to never let him see his sweat? He was definitely sweaty, but he pulled it off. So he's kind of my GOAT and hero. I do think that, you know, I think our Von Miller continues.
Sure,
you know, he's every game getting a sack. Now, everybody talked about him being the next Derek Thomas. I'm not seeing that quite all over the field yet, but, you know, when Doomerville, what is this now? 6 games in, 0 sacks.
Right.
Von Miller's at least getting his share, helping us out. And I thought Brian Dawkins, who's been a little dinged up with the neck injury, came back, has a decent game. And
I think they finally are starting. This is what makes me nervous next week when you know you're going to have guys from Detroit who can really stretch the field. And Dawkins is in a point in his career where the intangibles obviously are unquestionable. He can't guard guys on the field. He's still a premier safety against the run, bringing pressure on the blitz, things like that. He can't guard guys over the top anymore, and so that's what were you afraid of? Javon Best or that dude with the long hair, or Brandon Marshall going crazy?
Which depends on which Brandon Marshall shows up.
Right. I mean, is there really anybody on the Dolphins that really frightens you as a deep threat? No, there's not. That changes in the coming weeks. You know, you're going to see the Raiders again with all the speed that they have. You know, you're going to see the Chiefs again. You're going to see Detroit this week, and Dawkins is so good in that setting where he's supporting the run, where he's rushing the quarterback, but in a case where, you know, they're spreading out the defense and he's got to good cover guys. You know, I hope we see what we saw out of him today the rest of the year.
No, I hear you all the way. And although we're talking about Prater just for a second, he did pull off that onside kick, which is not an easy deal, and gets it up there right. But you're not most impressed with him. Who's a special teamer that's got
the guy that I think really has flown under the radar was the acquisition of Quan Cosby, the wide receiver out of Texas that spent some time with Cincinnati. 22-yard punt return on that punt return in overtime that really set up the short field, and you know that really put them in good position. They struggled early in the game with field position, and they were going against a long field, and it's nice. You know, Decker had the punt return early in the year, and now with Cosby back there, you've got 2 guys that, you know, you're not going to break a ton of them during the season, but if you can keep yourself out of a 80 or 90-yard field all day long, obviously that's going to help.
Well, a lot of people contributing. I think you put it up best. It's one thing to beat the Dolphins. I think we've got our hands full next week. So for the moment, though, Bronco fans, we haven't had too many moments to really soak it all in. So enjoy this week. You know, I think everybody got a little bit of what they wanted today. It's a tough opponent next week. At least it's at Denver, and hopefully they find some way for that Tebow magic, those intangibles to come through one more time, and I tell you, we're going to go nuts. This town will go nuts if they pull off a Lions
Well,
victory.
a win over Detroit, and then suddenly it's something you start to get serious about, obviously.
All right, well, one last thing here. We're going to finish up. I'm going to dive off the screen here. I know a lot of you guys are big followers of the Alumni Association. You follow them on their website or certainly there on Facebook. But sometimes so a lot of our Bronco Planet followers are not in the Colorado area, so I didn't want you to feel left out. So while we were there today with the help of Sam Smith and Brian Merrill, we were able to pass this ball around and get this signed. It was already signed by Britton Colquitt and Spencer Larson, who was right here on the set with us. But they're no guests compared to you, Chris.
Well, yeah, obviously.
And maybe you can sign this later.
I get paid a lot more.
So Billy Thompson also signed this as well. Larry Evans, a former linebacker, number 56. Who else do we got on here? Reggie Rivers, a host of other alumni there. Compliments of Bronco Planet and Sam Smith. So keep the blogs going. We're always giving away something. So the way you're going to win this week, go right to our website, www.broncoplanet.com. Go to the soapbox and talk about your favorite Bronco player so far this year. And you cannot name a quarterback. You cannot name a quarterback. You got to come up with your favorite Bronco and why on the soapbox. We'll put the names in a drawing and we'll give this away. And I had good intentions of giving away this signed Ron Egloff Orange Crush thing, and that's why you're going to attend these events. But I think I'm going to keep that for my collection. Ron Egloff, the old days, old school Bronco fans. You're going to love the fact that how can you part with this? This thing, maybe cost, a quarterback in the day. Funny story, Ron Egloff told me that every Bronco that went on this got paid $50. So that's the kind of old school.
You need to get the Riley Odoms one autographed so you can have bookends.
Oh, that would be nice. So I'll work on that.
Okay.
All right, Bronco Planet fans, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter. You're certainly right here at the website. We appreciate you watching. Keep the faith. We still believe in. Until next week, in your face.
For 1 week, in my face.
In your face.
I hope I'm wrong.
In your face.
I hope I'm wrong.
In your face.
I rarely am.